You're watching Face to Face. I'm your host, Tim Vince, and I'm delighted to be joined by Julie Ann Scott, famous artist, I would say, but we're going to talk more about it and how the Lord's led you to your calling. And so thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, my absolute pleasure is all mine.
Fantastic. And I normally ask guests how, because you've been on a journey to get to sit in the studio, and I'm just interested, how did you come to know the Lord?
Yes, well...
Long or the short version, and I'll interrupt you if it's too
I'll
long.
keep it really short. I was brought up in a Christian family and very strong believers. And then at 18, I was told that my father was not my real father and that I was from an affair. And it destroyed my faith, it destroyed my trust in my parents, and I went on a kibbutz.
Wow.
That was the first thing I did on my own. And then I'd already trained as a model, so I then got into modelling. I walked in on a film set that was a Michael Winner whodunit, Agatha Christie, with all these famous people. And then got into modelling, was modelling in Tel Aviv, met a man, a Jewish man, he wanted to marry me. I had to renounce Jesus. It was at that point when I had to not sit on the fence, and I decided to go home to Yorkshire to my auntie and uncle, he was a Church of England minister, and I fasted and prayed for 4 days, and on the 4th day in the afternoon the Lord spoke to me very clearly and showed me that I hadn't forgiven my parents, and that's why I couldn't feel him, that's why I couldn't hear him. And at that point everything changed. And I then went all around the world travelling. I looked for my father. I found him on Capitol Hill as a hairdresser in the basement. Wow. And
they let you in? Mind you, the security's a bit lax over there, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And yes, and then, you know, did some missionary work. I joined a drama company in California, doing Christian drama. Toured with them for 1.5 years, and then came back, did some Eastern Europe, and then I met my husband, had 2 kids, and then I started painting.
Wow. That is, I never know, but I always love the first question because we could spend half an hour talking about all of that, the lead up.
Yes.
But so, you know, were you trained in painting before?
Well, I got an A-level grade A at college, and it was at that point that my life fell apart. So I was kind of orphaned, that's what it felt like. And so no, I didn't go to uni. So when I was you know, way older, after having children, I just felt that God wanted me to paint. And so I got this canvas from the works, you know, and just went a bit mad, really. Just enjoyed myself. And
so was it paintings inspired by scriptures or paintings inspired by, you know, nature or history, dare I ask?
I just thought to myself, I need to paint what I want to paint. And I think a lot of artists think they're rubbish just because they can't paint faces or they can't paint animals, or, you know, you've got to find your niche. And for me, I just wanted to paint for the Lord, and I knew that I had to have or the Lord wanted me at least to have a career in art, and there's so much competition. I just said, Lord, you've got to do it. And I just painted every day for 1 year until I'd taught myself. And I'd just do something and then stand back and look at it and go, why is that wrong? Why is that not good? And then one day...
just interjecting then, at that point, do you throw the painting away or do you try to improve it? Or?
I try to improve it, and then once I've learnt the lesson of how to improve it, I paint over it. Yes,
okay. And do you put, I'm interested because my daughter does painting, so do you put effort into the background before you start filling in the details? Because she never does.
I think every artist approaches their painting. I mean, I was never good at drawing. Drawing wasn't my thing, and as soon as I got a paintbrush in my hand, and with every artist it's different, as soon as they get clay in front of their hands, they're like, this is it for me, you know. So definitely, the approach is very different. But for me, I always start with the sky, I always start with the white. I always start with white because it's God's light. So I realized in that year that God was saying, this is what I want you to paint. The battle between good and evil, light and darkness. So my work then emerged from that year as being very much about the spiritual battle, and that was the beginning of what God wanted to do. And then it's a long story, but by miraculous means, I was signed to De Montfort Fine Art, the largest agent in Britain. I was with them for 10 years.
Wow. Wow. And what did they ask you to produce? Or did you produce, again, under inspiration of the Spirit and then offer it to them?
I did. I mean, they were very, they wanted a lot of work. They had, hundreds of galleries. So I learned to paint very fast. They were a little bit constrictive. Usually, though, which is very interesting, whenever I painted something which I absolutely knew was prophetic, they'd reject it.
That is interesting, especially given what you say, you're painting something to do with the spiritual realm.
Yes.
And this modern age is trying to shut it down at every
But
stage.
the Lord always brought the person it was for. And when I met them or saw them or heard of them, I'd say, this is for you, and I'd give it to them.
Yeah, wow.
And but a lot of my work, people contacted me via email saying, there's something about your work. I remember doing my first exhibition kind of like before I was signed to De Montfort, which was at the NEC. And people just stood looking at it, crying, saying, I don't know why your art makes me cry. And this is what I've always had, and it's because I really wanted people to see and know God through my work.
And what I would say in answer to that is, if you're not interviewing me, but it is that everyone, we all have that image of God imprinted on us. There's a spiritual dimension to every life. So if the Lord's told you to paint something that's expressing the spirit realm, that's going to touch people. Amazing.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the battle of light and darkness. I've no idea. Do you just close your eyes and paint it? Or how do you actually express that?
Well, I lived in the Lake District at the time. I lived there for 30 years, and the weather was extremely changeable. And one minute you were in a t-shirt, next minute you've got 5 more layers on and a waterproof. Yeah. So that dramatic weather is what I tried to capture the most. That was what inspired me, was the light and the darkness that suddenly, suddenly you're dashed upon the rocks, and then next minute the sun comes out and it's on your cheeks, and you're like, oh, this is amazing.
And a colour within that.
Yes,
that's the most amazing thing, is the contrast, isn't it, sometimes?
Yes, I mean, I experimented a lot to get the style that I have, just using, green in the sky or all these different colours, not normally what the sky would be, but that's kind of you'd kind of call that abstract, semi-abstract. Yeah. Whereas you know what it is, but it doesn't have the.
So the Lord directed you to paint. You're expressing the spiritual dimension, and yet we're living in the physical realm. So how do you? I'm not going to get caught into saying how do you do it, but you're then, it's a kind of outreach as well, isn't it, to people who don't even know the Lord.
Definitely.
So what kind of subject areas has that led you into?
Many, actually. And I think, as an artist, when you're a professional, like any commercial area, it's come on, what's next?
Yeah.
Give us something new. So
that's the danger. So the agency's sort of trying to tell you, look.
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, if you've got something on the wall and people have gone, is there anything else in the back there? So I would ask the Lord, and He would tell me what to paint, and I started. I looked at nebulas, and I started with nebulas.
Wow.
And I was going through a point where the Lord was saying, I want you to smell the roses. And I'd gone through some healing. The Lord had healed me of emotional trauma and things of the past. And I felt that He wanted to say, smell the roses. And so I started doing flowers, and so it was kind of like that, but I've done seascapes, landscapes. I did elephants and deer. I've done nebulas. I've done koi carp, seals, sharks, underwater, shoals of fish.
So you're observing the beauty of creation, as it were, and painting.
The secret places,
Yeah. Does it give you an impression that everything evolved, or that, you know, by random chance, just for function? Or do you get an impression that there was a designer behind this universe and earth and flora and fauna? I'm asking an obvious question.
Yeah. Well, if somebody said to me, oh, that painting just threw itself together, Julianne Scott did not do that.
Yeah.
And she had no thought behind it, and it's just turned out beautiful because of random, I'd be really offended, and I don't blame God for if he's very offended right now.
That's the right answer. Do you have a record of all your paintings? Even the ones that you've given away?
Many. I've done about 2,000
Wow.
plus. Yeah.
Wow,
that's
that
a
is
lot.
amazing.
But 10 years, and I was doing between 8 and 18 a month.
Yeah.
So because I had to paint so much, I became very prolific and very fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, people seem to think that if it's fast, it can't be good. And that was one of the main questions that people ask, how long did this take? And I've come to realize that, you know, when Jesus turned the water into wine, he made the most incredible wine, the kind of wine that takes years.
Yeah.
But he did it in a second, like he did, you know.
Everything.
So everything. So for me...
Well, he said, let there be light. I mean,
yes.
how can you explain that
Yes.
instantaneously?
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm using that now to do prophetic art performance in churches and conferences. I've just been to DC. And also for fundraising. I want to do fundraising because it's a wonderful spectacle and people are very moved by it.
And what form does that take? You have an audience, or
Yes.
I think I've seen where you have people seated on tables. Are they actually trying to also learn how to paint, or is it?
No, I think it's just anyone who loves art,
Yeah.
really. Anybody who loves art, who loves watching something being created.
And
like
you
Rolf
are
Harris.
creating it live. I've seen this footage of you actually.
Yes.
Which is quite something.
And I finish it in 2 40-minute sessions.
Wow.
And then it's sold for charity.
Wow.
And anything else that I bring along.
I've also seen an amazing book which is called Stand, and you portray some of the scenes of the last war, but definitely from a spiritual perspective. Could you talk through some of those paintings?
Yeah, these are very different actually from my normal commercial work.
I'm assuming because it's called Stand that it's to do with Ephesians 6.
Yes.
And the fact that you've said you talk about spiritual war,
Yes.
but I'm interested in this.
So these are 9 paintings and the Lord told me to paint them. And it's a wonderful thing when God commissions you to do something. And it was quite, it's a very...
As opposed to an art agency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the God of the heavens who created everything, he's asking you to create something. That's quite something.
Wow.
And he told me to start with St. Paul's in the Blitz. And as time went on, I realized that actually Lord had a very important commission for me. And the message that goes with the paintings is very, it's a very serious message and a very grave one about how King George VI called the nation to prayer 7 times. And this is a history that's been lost. And
you see, I wasn't aware of that. You mentioned it just before this programme. I knew of 2 occasions, the Battle of Britain and Dunkirk, but he called the nation to pray 7 times.
7 times. And really, when you look at the odds, we had to know that we were up against evil with Hitler. And the Lord really wants these 9 paintings to have a message for the church, for the government, for the monarch, the monarchy, and the nation, and in the outer world. But that's starting in Britain. God spoke to me, it was for Britain, for us to remember how he saved us from the greatest evil, and that when the time comes, he will save us again if we repent and come back to him and his word. And it's a very, 8 years ago I started them. I did them in between my commercial work, and it took me about 5 years to do the 9, and which is longer than I would normally spend on each painting.
And it is focused on that chapter, as it were, the wartime Britain. Just talk us through some of the paintings, long enough for us to put them up on the screen.
Okay.
In other words, don't just rattle off the titles, and then we can't show them.
All right.
Okay, go on.
So the Lord told me to paint St. Paul's first, so let's put that one off.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, I couldn't get it straight, and the Lord, I got very angry because I couldn't get it straight, so I shouted at the Lord after about 4 days, thinking it must be because I'm, a rubbish artist. And I said, Lord, why can't I get this straight? I actually shouted it, and he said, it's because I'm about to shake the church.
Wow.
And this really hit me. And so with each painting, the Lord showed me a message for the nation. And it was I only realized that they were connected to the armor of God in Ephesians 6 when a man called Pastor John of Strengthen the Faithful asked, because we connected through, it doesn't matter how we connected, but he said the same year, which was 2017, the same year God told him to do a YouTube film about that subject.
Wow.
And an article. And he said, can you send me the images? I want to send them out to all these thousands of churches that I sent my article to. So I had to put them in order.
Yeah.
And they're not in chronological order. They're not in order of events. They're in order. I had to sit down, I put them all in my lounge, and I said, God, what order do I put these in? And God said, they're in the order of the armor of God. And actually, as I looked at them, and I was like my mind was blown, because they actually fitted.
Yeah.
And so, that's basically the story.
Okay, and we had, this terrible blitz, the Luftwaffe and the bombings and everything, and people can sort of understand open, kinetic, hot war, but we're in a kind of warfare, and you talked about, we're almost in a civil war, a cultural civil war over here. Is that part of what you're getting at in terms of the shaking that's going on?
What am I guessing at?
Or what the Lord is getting at. Don't let me use the wrong words. Yeah.
I think the Lord never said to me we were going to be at war. He said that there was a storm coming, but something we couldn't escape, something that was going to put us in a position where there were perilous times. Now, obviously, we could quite possibly be on the brink of war right now.
Yeah,
and right now, the Lord is revealing these paintings, and there's miracles and miracles and miracles. I could sit here for 2 hours telling you the miracles that God gave me in all these 8 years of confirming that they were for this nation, and they were for a time, and I had to wait in faith.
So these are miracles in your life, or miracles on the international stage, which there are?
My life mainly.
Yeah,
so pretty much every month I'd say, Lord, please give me more faith to believe that they're important. And he would do something incredible. Yeah. Yeah, incredible. Like, for example, the Battle for Britain one. I was looking at real photographs of Spitfires, and I was trying to, take that picture and meld them together to make the painting, and I'd spent all morning. And I thought, I need a break. So I parked my car at the car park, walked up this very short walk that came out. It's called Scout Scar, and it's in the Lake District, where you're on a cliff walk. And the minute I got to the top, I heard this, and I looked up, and there was a Spitfire going. Amazing. I mean, he was so close, I could see his teeth, the pilot's teeth. And he went down the valley, and I'm like, I've never seen a Spitfire, and I've never seen one in the lake.
Or heard it.
Yes, and it was so close. Like, the minute I got to the top, it went over my head. It was like, what? It was so close. Yeah. And those are the level of miracles that God confirmed to me. Exactly. And said, hang on, Julie, hang on. There's a day and a moment for these to be revealed, and I believe it's now. And
it's wonderful that you can recall it, but that you've noted it. So many of us have miracles, and we just take it for granted. But to, as it were, tab them is great. Oh, you actually write? Oh, you do.
With all three.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Journals.
Wow.
Lots.
Now the miracle of the Battle of Britain. Without asking you what it was, I think it is that we were so outnumbered. Yes. The decisions that were made in Germany, by Goering, was miraculous, because he could have taken out all our airfields, and Hitler diverted diverted to the cities,
Yes.
which was horrific. And you've mentioned St. Paul's, but that was a miracle. Tell us another one. I mean, or tell us another painting, or another miracle in your life.
Well,
Yeah.
Miracle of Dunkirk, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers it. The Miracle of Dunkirk.
Yeah.
They just say it so flippantly, the Miracle of
I know.
Dunkirk. They know it as that, but they don't know why it's a miracle and how the nation was called to prayer. And
Yeah.
this is something.
And
to
by the
our
way,
shame-
interjecting again, yes, this is the point. I was saying, look, that people forget the miracles in their lives. As a nation, we've forgotten the miracles that have saved us as a nation. Carry on.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
to our shame as a church, our leaders are not saying it. And this
Yeah.
is the moment that they should be saying it, actually.
Yeah.
This is the moment that they should be saying, we've got to stand. And that's why I called my book Stand, because it's only just come out, actually, yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's. This is a little aside. I did an evening of self-defense the other day, just for laughs, really. And people had to pick you up through here and pick you up, and then, as a person, the woman said to me, right now I want to imagine that you're a tree and that you're rooted in the ground, and that you're heavier than you are, and that nothing is going to move you. Now the other girl then came again to pick me up. She didn't hear any of that. She could barely pick me up. And I thought, this is so interesting. That actually, this is what we have to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to root ourselves in Christ and say, I'm not being moved.
Yeah.
Take whatever you want against me, but I am not moving right now. And that's what the church needs to do.
Wow,
in this
that is
hour.
so powerful. There's the scripture of the God of Jacob is my strong tower, and there's a chorus that says, I put the Lord before me, I shall not be moved.
Yes.
And you're talking, I mean, firstly, spiritually.
Yes, rooted in Christ.
As
We can do
individuals.
nothing without him.
Yeah, as individuals and as a nation. And am I right that you took the title from Ephesians 6?
Yes.
I assume you have. Having done all, stand.
To stand.
Yeah, amazing. Stand therefore.
Yeah.
And then put on the armour. So it starts with it being in the Lord's strength rather than us sort of working, flailing away in the flesh.
Exactly,
Yeah.
flailing away.
Yeah.
I think we're doing a lot of that right now.
Yeah,
aren't we? We're
yeah,
flailing.
yeah,
And we're
we are.
asleep, actually.
Yeah.
And this book and these paintings, I will take them where anybody invites
Yeah.
me. I said to the Lord, wherever they're invited, I will take them.
Now tell me, because you have been invited to Windsor Castle, no less. So just tell us about that.
It's a really good
Yeah,
start, isn't
no,
it?
yeah, it's really, I mean, I know you're too modest to have mentioned it, so I thought I'd better bring it up. But you've been invited to
Yes, I
actually
have. Yes.
display there.
My name's been put forward by Clifford Hill, Dr. Clifford Hill. Kindly, he saw them, he loved them, and he got the message, and he put my name forward to She Leads USA, which is a movement by a woman called Liz Doyle. And she's taking a whole load of very high profile US women into Windsor Castle for a 3-day prayer summit at St. George's House.
Wow.
And she wants me to bring the paintings and to paint prophetically for the whole group. There's probably about 17 UK delegates as well. All very amazing women. It's so funny, they've all got accolades and all these things after them, and then my name's there, it just says artist. But you've got to have a token artist wherever you go, haven't you?
No, and it's I like people who are underestimated. You know what I mean? Because it's so easy, people that are name dropping everywhere and being.
I actually don't
big shots.
care. I really don't. I just
That's a good
love
place to be.
this whole 8-year process has made me love Jesus like I've never loved him before, and cling on to him like I've never clung on to him before. Because to believe in something impossible. What's interesting, God has given me so many promises, and they're all happening now.
You're thinking of Windsor, it's symbolic of the nation of Britain, and that I think it was 1984, there was a terrible fire there.
Yes.
And it did seem then that our nation was being judged, and our dear Queen took the brunt of it,
Yes,
with those. But yeah, it's hopefully will wake more people up, both in the church and the nation, to realise that we're going to be called to account.
Yes. And when God said, I'm about to shake my church, I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen to you when you're asleep? Someone going like that.
Yeah.
And that's
a good
why
point.
people don't like to be shaken. They don't want it. And the more asleep you are, the less you want it.
Yeah.
And this is the moment for us to go, wake up.
Yeah. And there's a famous line, I mean, it is in the scriptures, but Clifford Hill's well known for saying, once more I shall shake the nations, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. And Christians are being persecuted, being shaken in many parts of the world, but are incredibly resilient. And so we need to encourage.
Yes, we do, and pray for them. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And the gospel, I think, needs to go out. I mean, there's the painting of the child and the soldier, which is the shoes shod with the gospel of peace. And it's interesting, as I've looked at these paintings, the first one's St. Paul's, then we have Roosevelt and Churchill, which represents the leaders, but not only the leaders of a nation, the leaders of a church, the leaders who need to stand together united and understand and know their enemy. Because it was when those two leaders stood together and go, okay, we can't argue anymore, we have to know who our enemy is. And the church does not know particularly who their enemy is. And the enemy's penetrated our walls somewhat.
Yeah.
So they have to, it's really interesting looking at them all, that unless the belt of truth, which is the first one, which is D-Day, and actually, I'm actually taking these paintings to St. Mary's Woolnoth, which is on John Newton's church, and that is happening on D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day, and I'm speaking about them in the evening.
Yeah.
And unless
by the way, we're in our last minute, but keep rolling.
Unless the belt of truth is in place,
Yeah.
the leaders won't have the breastplate of righteousness, and then we cannot give the gospel. So really, when you look at it, they are, but it's all in my book.
Isn't that wonderful? I'm so pleased, Julianne Scott, that that the Lord called you, and we're just having a little snapshot into what you're doing, and we haven't got enough time. But we're going to have another occasion, and it has to be here, otherwise it could be in the Lake District. But thank you so much.
I'm actually not in the Lake District.
Oh, really?
I'm in Poole.
Okay. Oh, you're further south.
But God called us to Dorset.
That's another beautiful area.
Yes, it is.
Bless you, and pray that the Lord will bless all of these public events as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless. And
Thank you very much.
I just have to say thank you so much for joining us on Face to Face.